You're listening to the Casting for Fun podcast, the show that talks about entertainment, sports, music, and inspirational stories for all to enjoy. We're glad you could join us today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Now, here is your host, Albert Pineda.
Welcome, everybody, to the Casting for Fun podcast. I am your host, Albert Pineda, and for this week's episode, I'm going to be joined by two really great friends, Steve and Tim Welling. The Welling family have been really close friends with my in-laws, the Sharp family, for many, many years. So since I've gotten to marry into the Sharp family with my wonderful wife, Allison, I've gotten to know the Wellings very well over these past almost 8 years now that Allison and I have been married. The Wellings are a wonderful, great family, and I have quite a bit in common with Steve and Tim. So it's wonderful to chat with them about various topics, birthday celebrations, bike riding through downtown LA, going to visit the Philippines, their family heritage from their mom's side of the family, and of course, chatting about the LA Galaxy, soccer in general, and what music we're listening to. So it's a really fun conversation for me, and I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to catch up with both Steve and Tim. Before I get to my interview with them, I did want to just address some of the recent ongoing things with sports right now. So as most people are probably aware, the Dodgers had a heartbreaking defeat this past weekend and are eliminated from the MLB playoffs. It was a devastating game to watch. And, it's interesting with sports. I mean, you can be really angry and upset, and deservedly so, considering the collapse that the Dodgers went through. But at the same time, remembering that we love sports because of the thrill of victory, and victory has no meaning unless defeat is also a possibility. So we have to remember that you have to take the good with the bad as it comes. And the Dodgers will hopefully be a competitive team again next year. And what the future holds for the team, I don't know. It's interesting to see what's going to happen. In previous episodes of the show with my friends Sean Lovano and Stephen Cable, we talked about how their manager Dave Roberts had predicted and declared that the season was going to be a World Series championship for the Dodgers. He guaranteed it, and it didn't happen. So what happens to Dave Roberts now? I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to someone who knows the ins and outs of the team very well. My understanding was he had signed a contract extension. So even though he made that claim and fell short, I don't know if he's going anywhere anytime soon, but we'll see what happens this offseason. It's going to be an interesting one for the Dodgers. With that being said, with the Phillies still in it, the Philadelphia Phillies would be my pick, the team that I'm rooting for to win the World Series. We'll see how they do against San Diego and then against whatever American League team emerges for the World Series. And on that note, we have the Galaxy coming up. Galaxy have a huge game on Thursday, playoff game against their rivals, LAFC. I love the Galaxy, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast, and I'm very, very excited for this game. I think the Galaxy have an excellent chance, even though they are the lower seeded team. We're seeing in sports, so sometimes the lower seeded teams actually have a more of an advantage over the higher seeded teams. The National League Championship Series is going to be contested between the Padres and the Phillies, and both of them are the 5 and 6 seeds. So the Galaxy's chances against LAFC, I think, are excellent. I think they absolutely can defeat them in a one-off game. And I think the Galaxy can even go even further. They might even make it to MLS Cup this year. Of course, we'll see how I feel a week from now. When I record next week's episode, maybe I'll be sad and depressed because the Galaxy have been eliminated too. But that's sports for you, So, I talk extensively about the Galaxy with Tim and Steven in my interview upcoming with them. So, I'm looking forward to that conversation with them and everything else that we get to talk about. Okay, thank you again to all my listeners for listening to the Casting for Fun podcast. This is episode 44 with Steven and Tim Welling. Joining me now on the Casting for Fun podcast are two really great friends, Steve and Tim Welling. Gentlemen, how are you both doing tonight?
Doing good. We're doing good. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to any of my previous episodes, but I just kind of like doing this for fun, just to give me I love podcasts, and then I love just being able to talk about anything I want to talk about. And it always gives me a chance to reconnect and talk to friends who I haven't talked to in a while too. So it's kind of fun.
Right. It seems it's a cool premise. I haven't had the chance to listen to it, but I know our dad listens to it.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think he mentioned to me that he had talked to Allison, and she had mentioned to me that he complimented on the Allison's birthday episode, which was pretty fun.
That's good.
Yeah. And then speaking of birthday, so happy belated birthday to you, Steve. So I hope it was a fun time for you last week.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a good time. It was pretty low key, but it was much needed rest.
Oh, awesome. Very good. Very good. So actually, I kind of want to start out with just a kind of a random but simple question then. So how do you guys both like to celebrate now as you're older? I mean, it may not be as big of a deal now as opposed to younger, but what does your birthday celebrations usually look like now?
I'll go first, I guess. So for me, I was just actually talking about this today with a coworker that it feels really, really strange to plan my own parties. So I don't want to plan. It feels weird to be like, hey, come over, celebrate me for being alive, celebrate my birthday, So it's more like, I just go to dinner with really close friends and then just with my family. And that's pretty much the way that I choose to celebrate it, because any other way would just feel just sort of narcissistic to me in a way. It just feels like, hey, look it's my day today. Well, it's nice to be wished happy birthday and all that, but
yeah,
throw a party around it. Just it's not what I do. So
sounds good.
Maybe that makes me boring. I don't know.
Oh, very good, very good. How about you, Tim? What do you usually do for your birthday celebrations?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, nowadays, I usually feel like it's just sort of whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, there's definitely not as much fanfare than when I was like a younger kid, and like it's a lot more low key, I guess. Like, usually, like I'm just perfectly happy and content now with just like going out to dinner with like family and like, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I don't really have any parties, but kind of like Steven said, like really like sometimes like maybe somebody will like put something together like, and like maybe we'll do it like a get together or party that way. But like really it's pretty low key nowadays. Yeah, just kind of just go out to dinner and that's pretty much how it goes.
Oh, perfect. Sounds really good. Really good. And definitely the best way to celebrate. And as Steven mentioned, it's just kind of weird to kind of say, hey, throw me a party. Or if you do it, you kind of have to hint to the spouse, hey, like, call so-and-so, let's get them for dinner or something.
Right. I mean, I guess my only requirement really for the day is that I don't work.
Yeah.
Even or when I was in school, I wouldn't go to school that day. And it's just a day to do essentially whatever I wanted to do for myself that day, which is not working.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I don't want to work.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, so Tim, I got to ask you this before we started the recording, life in Santa Barbara, just briefly about how the weather was, but I've always wanted to go and visit. I've heard lots of good things about the city. So you and your wife, Denise, have been out there for a couple of years now. What do you like best about Santa Barbara?
Definitely the weather. The weather and the climate. I don't know, like I never really thought it would be a big deal until moving here, and then like now it's like whenever I go anywhere else that's not Santa Barbara, I find myself less comfortable and like commenting on the weather when I wouldn't have before. So I don't know, I guess it's a blessing and a curse. If you want to call it that. I don't know. I feel silly almost saying that, but yeah, it's definitely the weather. The weather is the best part. It's never really too hot, never really too cold. So you just kind of get the best of everything, really. But yeah, definitely the weather.
Rent prices. You sure it's not the housing that's the best part?
Oh my gosh, the housing. Oh, yeah. The cost of living is not great here. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Easily my biggest complaint about the city. But I mean, I guess that I mean it's to be expected a little bit, but it's still kind of not great in that regard. For sure.
Absolutely. I bet. Okay. Well, going back to the birthdays and spending time with the families. I mean, it's really cool that I feel like I've gotten to know the Welling family very well through the Sharps, which is awesome. That the two families have been good friends for many, many years, and how amazing and great your whole family is, and your parents are as well. It was kind of cool that as I was preparing notes for this podcast, I was kind of doing a little bit of Facebook stalking. So just looking back at previous pictures you guys had done. It's really cool to me that you guys go bike riding as a family. In fact, I saw the pictures from, I guess it was the Firecracker Joyride through Chinatown, which I guess happened right before COVID hit, right? February of 2020.
Yeah, that was the first time we did it.
Oh,
Wait,
first
no,
time. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Was it?
we did it.
Did we go during COVID or?
We did definitely go. I think we did during COVID. Year of the rat. What year was that?
2020 for COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was 20. So yeah, that really was right before COVID. We went that year. Yeah,
We went that year and the year before, I
the
believe.
year before. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I remember seeing just the pictures.
right.
So you had so Melissa was riding with you guys as well, and your dad Ken. So it was really cool just to see the family bonding together like that. So how did the family come to like bike riding, and what are some of your favorite like courses or favorite trails to go bike riding at?
So I guess it really, for us at least, when we were growing up, for our Boy Scout troop, we did a ride to San Diego. And so we left from Glendora and we rode, I guess we rode to the beach first, and then in a series of 4 days, we rode all the way down to San Diego. And I think that's when we really started riding a bit more, because before, we'd ride bikes every once in a while, but that was the first time we really like spent real time riding bikes together. I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah. That Boy Scout trip down to, we rode from Glendora. Yeah, started in Azusa. Or we're starting in Glendora, went to Azusa, and then rode down. But yeah, that trip, then going down to San Diego once after getting to the beach. Yeah, that was really, I guess, when we started riding the bike more. And then I think we went to Mammoth like the following, like a few years, I think, with the Boy Scouts. So those trips, yeah. But the Chinatown bike ride, that one, I'm not sure. How did that was Dad or a connection there, right, Stephen? Or
Yeah, so that was like the Joy and Dad did that that year before she passed, and so it became kind of like a tradition of ours to do it also. But COVID kind of ruined a lot of traditions, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm sure we'll start doing it again once maybe this year we'll do it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So,
I still get the email, so I'm reminded of it
every year, because it's not too bad. It's only, I think is it a 10K or is it 5K?
I think it's a 10K, but on a bike, that's really not too much.
Yeah, unless you're using a bad bike.
It might even be a 5K. No, I think it's a 10. Yeah.
The first year we did it, Tim was borrowing. I borrowed my in-laws' bikes, so I was using my father-in-law's, and my brother was using my mother-in-law's bike. And the entire time he was complaining about how hard it was. And I was like, okay, let's just switch bikes, because it can't be that hard. And it was night and day. It was her bike was so bad. It had no gear. It was like stuck in like, I think, fourth or something. Like high gear.
It was so bad. It was so inefficient. So yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. We got to the halfway point, and then I think you switched shortly after that, and then you witnessed just how terrible of a bike that was.
Yeah, and that year the course was particularly hilly, so it was just a nightmare.
It is pretty cool though, because you do get to see parts of LA that, at least for myself, I was a little less familiar with. So I mean, each year they do a different route. So I think that year we went to San Marino, or yeah, kind of got to see that area of town, and then
Oh, cool.
um, and then the 2020 I think went up past like the LA Zoo and like by the yeah, like next to the 5 freeway. So that was like a different route, but yeah, pretty cool bike ride. Yeah, pretty low key too. Really good family event, really. So yeah,
Oh,
shout out.
awesome. Awesome. I've always wanted to pick it up as a hobby because it seems like it would be pretty fun. I mean, I guess it is kind of costly to have a bike and to maintain it, but there have been a few times where I went down to Santa Monica with Marcelo and a few other friends where we rented bikes and then just did like the bike trail right there along the beach, which was really, really fun. So yeah, I mean, I guess, do you guys have like areas you like to go bike riding in, or is it kind of more just waiting for like the specific like events like the Chinatown one?
Um, my buddy and I, we started riding bikes, well, maybe a few years ago, and we would, there's the, oh, what do they call it? The Pacific Electric Trail or something like that. And it starts in Claremont and it goes, I think it might go to the 15. So, which is what it's a lot of miles.
Yeah,
And
that's a pretty good distance.
yeah,
Yeah.
we wouldn't do the whole thing. I don't
Uh-huh.
think, I think the farthest we ever went to was down to Haven, which I don't even know how many miles. Maybe like 20 miles to and 20 miles back. And we're not professional bike riders or anything, so
Yeah.
that was a long trip. But around, yeah, because we don't do any, mostly just road bikes, road trails. So just wherever there's a bike lane is where we like to go because driving next to cars is scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So sticking with family, I wanted to ask about trips that you guys probably have had the opportunity to go on. So it's really cool that your mom has worked with Southwest Airlines for many, many years, right? And then of course your family heritage, you're half Filipino. So I mean, have you had chances to go and visit Philippines or any other locations through connections with your mom with their flights?
So last time I went to the Philippines was in 2000, and I know I'd gone maybe a few times before then, but in 2000 I was 10, so I barely remember that trip. I think Tim, you went more than me though, right?
I think I did go more than you when I was like really young, like still like a baby or a toddler. I guess I went on a few additional trips with just my mom when I was really small. But yeah, I think most of the same as Steven. Yeah, we were there for the, um, yeah, when it was the millennium, like the New Year's Eve, New Year's 2000. So when I think that was our last trip there, and um, yeah, and I think yeah, and then I went in the previous trip. I was younger, like in second grade. Um, but yeah, the Philippines it's been on our list. Yeah, like we've talked about going back a few times now, like as a family, and um, I don't know. The timing's never been perfect, but I think I think it's finally going to happen in the next couple of years. Actually, or I know Mom brought it up again, and um, I mean, yeah, sometimes the political climate's not always the greatest all the time there, and it can be a little dangerous. So that's sort of kept us from going the past few times, but it goes up and down. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. So from the times you guys have gone, what do you remember most about the Philippines, or what do you enjoy most about going to visit?
Oh, I mean, where like our family um had a farm in you know, I am a bad son, a bad Filipino for not knowing exactly where it is. I know it's in the island of Cebu, um, but it was very remote. So it wasn't like anywhere by Manila or anything. And so just was very rural. and like and that part is like kind of jungly, what I remember. And so it's probably changed a lot since then, but I remember just there being like a lot of vegetation and everything was so green and such a contrast from, you know, LA, California, this part of, California, at least it's sure we have some green, but like only in the spring. And then the rest of the year it's brown.
Yeah.
There was just so green, and there was like rainstorms and monsoons that would happen while we were there. And so it was just kind of crazy to see the dramatic changes in weather.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me it was definitely just the scenery and the climate kind of, yeah, it was just a totally different place. Like really different from LA. And I always say, like, I always distinctly remember like it smelled different there. Like at least like on my mom's island, like in general, like everybody is always burning a fire, and so like on an island, like it's like pretty, being in the Philippines is pretty humid, so like I always remember that distinct smell of like smoke and kind of like island air, kind of like humid but fresh air. um but I don't know, yeah, I guess I always remember that part really when I think of the Philippines. And the scenery was really interesting, really different. I mean, volcanic. So
Okay, well, very cool. So the way you guys describe it, it sounds like the Philippines would be a really cool like sightseeing area, which would be really fun, I think, to someday see. So hopefully you guys are able to go together as a family with your spouses and your parents. I think that'd be really fun, really, really cool. On the subject of the spouses, so Allison had a specific question she wanted me to ask you both. Since I guess I know Allison's a big fan of the podcast, she always listens. So she wanted to know, or at least have me recount to you guys, the stories of how you met your respective spouses, Melissa and Denise.
Okay. You go first this time.
okay, all right. So yeah, how I met Denise, and so yeah. I grew up LDS when I was 16. It was funny. I was going to Mutual, like I'd always, I grew up always going to Mutual. So, but during this particular time, it was, I think, May of 2008, April 2008. We were getting, like, Mutual started becoming like a multi month event, where we were doing a dance festival, and we were preparing for a dance festival that summer. So what that consisted of was like all the different age groups among the church youth kind of partnered up with different people in their age groups, and we all learned like a different dance for our different age ranges. And so anyhow, like it's funny, I guess I was really not looking forward to these few months of doing dance festival, so I really didn't want to go. So like anyhow, like, but I always went to Mutual, but during this particular, like, I was really not looking forward to dance festival. So it was funny because like I think I had managed to actually like skip out on a few events during the weekday. And so anyhow, I was with Colin
cool.
Sharp. And so yeah, so and it's funny because we were both in the same boat. Neither of us were particularly keen on this Mutual activity. So anyhow, yeah, I remember distinctly, I think we were able to stay, or we managed to stay at his parents' house during Mutual one time. I don't know how we got away with that, and then yeah, I think another time we did go to church, but we didn't participate in the activity. We were kind of just wandering around. But anyhow, how I met Denise, so yeah, she also grew up in the Glendora Stake, in the second ward. but anyhow, never knew who she was, or anything about her. But we ended up, being assigned dance partners. And yeah, after we were assigned, we shortly after that we started going out. And yeah, and then that's how we met. We were dance partners, and neither of us wanted to be dance partners, but we were both dance partners. And both ended up, going out, falling in love, and now she's my wife. But yeah, that's how I met her.
Oh, awesome. Sounds really cool.
Yeah, so for Melissa and I met her in the Glendora YSA, the single adult ward.
Uh-huh.
And so it was just, just another Sunday. Her and her sister went, introduced myself, and she was kind of new because she went to BYU Idaho, but was on academic suspension for a little bit. So she moved back home while that was being dealt with. And so we became friends, and we were friends for like about 2 years before we started dating. And I'd always thought she was pretty and she was fun to be around. And so one day I was like, oh, I'll ask her out and see what happens. And so she said yes. It was a great time. We went on this perfect date, seemingly, right? It was at this picnic, and I, brought out her favorite drink, some of her favorite food, and we just had this park. It was really nice. And then I dropped her off at home, and I think I called her, texted her something afterwards, like, hey, I had a really good time. I would want to do this again. And then she said no.
Oh, no.
She didn't want to do it again. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess it didn't go as well as I thought it did. But then about, I think, a week or two later, she said, I think I messed up. I actually do want to date. So then for our second date, she actually took me on the second date.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, for that. And so, and ever since then, we dated for about a year, and then we got married, and so far so good. I can complain, but not much.
Oh, very cool. It's awesome to hear both your stories. And it's kind of funny to think that my family has a little bit of ties, or I personally, or my family does, to both your in-laws. So, Denise, if I remember correctly, her and her family lived in Temple City a while back. So they knew my dad well when he was the bishop there. And then, of course, Allison and I lived in Covina, so we knew the Simpsons very well. And had no idea that you and Melissa knew each other. That was kind of cool.
That's funny.
Yeah, so small world that we live in.
Right?
Yeah. No,
How
she always
did
brings up that connection.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, like talking about how when your dad was a bishop in Temple City. But anyhow.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Thank you for sharing both your stories. They're really cool to hear, and you guys have a great wife, so it's really, really cool to hear those stories. I wanted to jump into a little bit of more about entertainment questions. I think that'd be kind of fun to go over some of stuff like that. So, Tim, I know you're a big Star Wars fan. I'm assuming you are as well, Steve. So I wasn't entirely sure, but I was wondering what you guys think of the recent Disney Plus shows of Star Wars that we've seen. Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Andor, if you've had a chance to catch up on those shows on Disney Plus.
I have partially kept up. Not as good as, so yeah, I can claim I'm a Star Wars fan. I'm an old Star Wars fan.
Okay.
I'm not the currently most up-to-date Star Wars fan, but I did grow up. So I'll say that out of the way. And like, I actually haven't even been to Disneyland since they've had the Star Wars exhibits.
Oh, really?
Or any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars, especially the original trilogy. Amazing. but yes, and I'm sometimes a fan of what they do, sometimes not a fan of what they do in Star Wars. But like in regards to the newest trilogy that came out,
Mhm.
but yeah, I've kept up a little bit with, I guess, yeah, Mandalorian. I've watched the first season, and I'm actually currently on the second season. I've restarted it a few times, but I really want to get through it this time. So I'm the furthest I've ever been so far, but I'm still not caught up. And I do want to see Andor. I really liked out of all the new movies they made, that movie. Gosh, what was the name of that title?
Rogue One.
Rogue One. Yeah, Rogue One was easily my favorite out of the new Star Wars movies. But yeah, kind of looking forward to Andor. Haven't seen it though, or Boba Fett. Haven't caught up. Haven't watched that show, but I kind of want to watch Mandalorian before going there, anyways.
Yeah, you definitely want to catch both seasons of Mandalorian before you do Book of Boba Fett, and then Obi-Wan you can kind of squeeze in whenever you need to,
Right.
because that's it takes place after Revenge of the Sith but before A New Hope. So
okay.
But yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying it, and I agree. I mean, like the new Star Wars is cool, but I mean, you really can't touch the OG stuff, like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about you, Steven? Have you been watching the Disney Plus shows at all?
So I think I'm a little bit better than Tim, but not by much. I have finished the second season of Mandalorian, and that's about as far as I got. I really do want to watch Andor, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan. It's just yeah, I'm like Tim said, you know, we grew up with the OG ones, and then the prequels, and I you know, I have thoughts about the sequel trilogy,
Mhm.
and they're not very positive towards them. But you know, I get it, and you know, they're trying to recreate, you know, practically plot per plot as the original. But you know, I really enjoyed Rogue One. I thought there's so much story behind Star Wars that I like, so much lore, and the idea that there was, you know, because essentially once the Empire took control, right, they were the government, right? They were in charge, and then the rebels were rebels / terrorists. But then, you know, you saw in Rogue One that there was a faction of rebel terrorists that were so extreme that they were disowned by the more mainstream terrorists.
Yeah.
It was like kind of interesting, but like story wise, like wow, like what did they do that made them like disavow this group of, you know, they're fighting for the same cause, but just not in a way that, you know, wasn't good to them.
Mhm.
And I wish they would have like kind of, I don't know if Andor follows that a little bit more, and I hope it does, but it's just like very interesting to me, that story wise. But and still, I love Star Wars, and really sense of and then Tim, you definitely need to go to the Star Wars land and Disneyland, because that's an experience for sure. I'm assuming you've been, right, Albert?
Oh yeah, we've been many times. Even if Avery doesn't really want to, like, I mean, we go together as a family all the time. We'll still maybe just like walk through, you know, as we're going from, like, say, like we'll take that the long way around so we can go through Star Wars land, from leaving from Fantasyland to go to like to Frontierland. So just to kind of see the sights, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the way they do it is just so good. It makes you like kind of feel like you're in the bazaar of like Tatooine and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So recommend it to all.
Yeah. When you get a chance, I know it's not obviously not in your backyard anymore. So whenever you're in town.
Yeah, no, that's definitely that's going to be the first exhibit I see once I go to Disneyland next, for sure.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Shifting gears just a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit of LA Galaxy soccer with you both, because I know you guys love the team, have gone to games many times before. The team's looking really, really exciting to watch them play. I mean, in the beginning of the season, my hopes weren't super high. but then they got those two really key signings, Brugman and Ricky Puig from Barcelona. So I mean, both of them have just been incredible. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch the last playoff game. It was actually during my grandma's funeral, so I had to miss it. But as soon as the funeral services were over, I maybe put on my phone just to see how they did, and sure enough, they won. So how do you think the team's looking now against LAFC this coming Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, like in general, like, I mean, to sum up the season, like, yeah, I thought they had a pretty good start. I felt confident, and then I started to see like the cracks and sort of like where they're missing, like, and because they had a pretty strong start to the season. Then like they had a little bit of a dip, but then right before the international break in the summer, they had a few key wins where they really looked like they were turning things around. And after the international break, they were kind of slumped and back down again. And it was just the same, like, like the thing I feel like in general, like with Galaxy, like this season, like there've been so many like glimpses of like great moments, and like they're gonna do something, but they've just been missing something. And yeah, definitely with this last transfer window, Gaston Bergman and Ricky Puig, were fantastic signings, because now the teams are doing like so well since that, totally turned it around. I mean, what was that? I think the last 11 games they had only lost once.
Yeah, I think the record was like 5-1-5, something like that.
Yeah, 5-1-5.
One loss and 5 ties. So
yeah, and they had the most amount of points in the Western Conference too, for that period. But yeah, it feels, Galaxy right now, I don't know, it feels like they've finally found their form, finally found the missing puzzle pieces to make them really sort of work. So I mean, now with playoffs, first game's down, they're coming in hot. They're now like a couple games won in a row. That was Houston. First playoff game was Nashville. 2 wins. Then this Thursday, El Trafico against LAFC. I always laugh at that because I know Steven doesn't care for it. What do you call it, Steven?
It's stolen valor.
Stolen valor. Yeah.
El Clasico.
He says calling it El Trafico is stolen valor.
Because the Rio El Clasico took place this past weekend, and Real Madrid won.
Of course they did.
Right.
I just I have so many. Oh man. Yeah, I hate the name El Trafico. I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? It makes sense. There's a lot of traffic in LA. It's the two LA teams playing against each other. But it is it's such a silly name, El Trafico, to me at least. And I think it's part of me. Like I love soccer, but and I like LA Galaxy just because it's the team that was here when we were growing up. But I never really, like, even now I still don't really follow it too much. I might follow it more because Tim really likes LA Galaxy, and I still do like him, and I have another buddy of mine who really likes him. And so, but in part of me, because because I watch European soccer, Premier League, and then La Liga, and all the European leagues are superior to MLS, and so it's kind of, it makes like I want American soccer, American football to be, or better, right? And it's frustrating to see how not this World Cup, but the previous one we didn't even make it, right? And to see we have so many teams, and it's like the structure of our system, the way we do soccer is we try to make it like like basketball, like hockey, with the playoff system, and there's no relegation, no promotion, and so El Tráfico to me sounds like gimmicky, trying to. But that's my soapbox for it. But I do like Galaxy, but LAFC signed my favorite player of all time, Gareth Bale. So
okay, very cool.
So it's really, I wish Galaxy signed him, because then that'd be awesome. Because now part of me, I don't want LAFC to win, but I want Gareth Bale to do good. So stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah. Well, it will also be tough this coming World Cup when the USA faces Wales in their group stage. So
yeah, I'm stuck again. I have to choose who to root for. Which hopefully the US goes through, but not. I mean, I think they have a good shot. England does not look good. I think England has lost their last, haven't won any of their last previous games from what I recall, and so they're not looking good. Iran, well, we'll see how they do. Wales is kind of like the fairy tale, barely making it to the World Cup, the first World Cup since from the 60s, I think.
I think so, yeah.
So the US has a really good shot to go through. I think, especially unless England gets their act together. But I know their right back, their primary. I mean, I think they're bringing 3 or 4 right backs for whatever reason, and so I know they're really stacked in that position. But for whatever reason, they're not clicking, at least on the world stage. I think they got knocked out of the League of Nations.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So I think they actually got relegated to whatever's lower than there. So we have a good shot, and I think hopefully we don't make it out of the round of 16. I don't think so, but hopefully we can make it. I'm not confident, but I'm hopeful.
Very good, very good. It's going to be definitely a really fun couple weeks of soccer, which is really exciting. Initially, I didn't like the idea that the World Cup was going to be in the winter time, but it's kind of cool. I guess since anytime the World Cup's going on, it's just exciting. So very cool. One last question that I had for you both, unless you guys had more on soccer, or
I mean, I could talk about it all day, but
yeah,
it'd be ranting at this point.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, I know. So when we were neighbors, Steven, I got to see you wearing Incubus t-shirts all the time, which was really cool. So I know you're a big fan of music, and then from when I knew you before from attending the Glendora Singles Ward. Tim, I wasn't sure if you are or not, because I knew you like Star Wars, but I wasn't sure if you're also a big fan of music like Steve. So I wanted to ask you, just for our final wrap-up question, what are you guys listening to now? What's in something that's kind of been cool that's caught in your ear recently?
Well, Tim actually likes music a lot more than I do. That's for sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he really I like music a lot, and they're but some of my favorite bands that I've listened, that I've grown to really love, Tim actually showed them to me. And so this coming weekend, we're going to see the Mars Volta, and was, used to be, the At the Drive-In, and that's probably my favorite band. And Tim was the one that introduced me to them.
Oh, very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Tim's the music
yeah. I was just smiling in the beginning because when you asked what are we listening to right now, I was just thinking the Mars Volta. I was thinking about the upcoming show this weekend
awesome.
As this Friday. That's been listening to that band for a long time. They were broken up for 10 years. So they broke up in 2012, and then they announced this year that they were coming out with a new album. And so anyhow, never got to see them back in the day when I was a big fan in high school, but now I'm getting to live that dream as an adult now, I guess, for the reunion tour. So that'll be fun. But
very cool. Yeah, you guys are definitely in for a really cool treat. So I got to see them open up for the Red Hot Chili Peppers way back in 2006 when they were touring for the Stadium Arcadium show. So this was all at the old Forum. And yeah, I loved them as soon as I heard them because I would hear the song "The Widow" on K Rock, and then I got to hear all their other stuff, and I was like blown away. So yeah, really, really cool. Mars Volta is a great band for sure.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. I did not know that, or that you were, a fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my favorite band growing up for sure. And I actually wanted to, I remember that show. I really wanted to go to that show where they opened for Red Hot Chili Peppers. But yeah, I couldn't find someone to drive me at the age of 14 or 15, however old I was. So I mean, yeah, wasn't quite a great age group yet where I could drive myself. I think that show, I always talk about that show that I regret missing. And also I think Mars Volta, there's a Nine Inch Nails show in Anaheim that I think, anyhow.
Oh, okay, very cool.
But yeah, music's fun. Looking forward to that show this weekend.
Oh, awesome. I don't know if you guys I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tim. Do you guys know the band the Silver Sun Pickups?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, their new album just came out a few weeks ago. I really like that one, Physical Thrills. So that's definitely one I recommend checking out.
Okay, yeah, 'cause I really like their old stuff, and very unique sound.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Physical Thrills is the name of the new album.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna download it because been needing some new music. Nowadays it's hard for me to I'll just hear a song and I'll like the song, and then I'll go to the artist and it's someone I've never heard of, and then I find out that's the only song I like of them. So it's kind of a bummer. But I like when bands that I've know that I like come out with new stuff like Silver Sun Pickups. That'd be cool to listen to.
Yeah, them and St. Lucia. I don't know if you guys know them. They're pretty cool. They're kind of more like 80s kind of style synthesizer pop, but a newer band. They just came out with an album called Utopia, so that's another one I'd recommend.
St. Lucia,
yeah.
St. Lucia.
Yeah. Well, cool, bro. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I had for tonight. Was there anything else you guys wanted to discuss, or?
No. Thanks for having us on. This was a lot of fun. Cool. Fun thing.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on. Appreciate joining you tonight. This is the first podcast I've ever asked to be on, so
Same.
so that's fun. That's fun for me.
Oh, awesome. Again,
and go LA Galaxy. Yeah, to finish off that from before, I think they're in a great position going into this El Tráfico game. I think they're coming in hot, and LAFC hasn't played a game for 10 hasn't played a game. They won't have played a game for 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be a little rusty, and they'll be coming off that loss. So I don't know. I just think the Galaxy's found their stride. So go Galaxy.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Tim. And it's kind of crazy that not crazy, but just with scheduling, they have to wrap up the playoffs quicker than usual to make time for the World Cup, because they don't want to obviously compete against the World Cup. So they're just playing one-off games, and it's anyone's game at that point. So even though LAFC is the higher seed and throughout the regular season we're technically the better team, the Galaxy have gotten hot just at the right time. So
yeah.
But very cool, very cool. Well, thank you both so much for joining me tonight. Again, this is so much fun for me. I love this hobby. It's been really great. Fun for me to record stuff that I want to listen to, and I'm assuming my friends and family would also like to listen to. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the Welling family's meant so much to my in-laws, so it's been really great getting to know you guys better in the past 8 years that Allison and I have been married. So always looking forward to when we get to spend time with you guys for family meals, stuff like that. So again, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Steve. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Albert.
Okay, thanks again, everyone. So you've been listening to the Casting for Fun podcast.